Hey guys, sorry about that. Savage Joy here with Kaniela Ing. He is in Hawaii. He is running for the U.S. Representative Congressional District 1. And he is currently an elected official of Hawaii State Rep and Majority Policy Leader. So thank you again for joining us. Again, apologies to whoever's watching it. Unfortunately, IT issues suck and happen. So what are some of the things that you do in your current position?
So I'm tasked right now setting the priorities for the state house. Um, this year, big focus on housing, and here in the island, we have these luxury condos popping up every couple weeks, going for $20 million a piece, right next to veterans and Native Hawaiians sleeping on the streets. So it's a really stark inequality happening here. So we really got to get that under wraps. I think we just moved a medical aid in dying, death with dignity bill yesterday. So there's some good stuff happening, but you'd be surprised by how many Democrats do everything they can to kill some of our most progressive bills. So that's really been an uphill battle, is trying to hold other Democrats accountable, but not come across as like some kind of anti-party spoiler and too negative. So it's always been a challenge. It's a really big tent here in Hawaii.
It's so fascinating to me that you said that your area used to be Republican. I always thought, since Byrne won Hawaii like 86% or something, I
Hmm.
figured it was a very progressive area. And plus Tulsi, everybody in the States loves Tulsi, so I don't know, that's kind of surprising to me. So I guess they want to change because they've certainly voted for you.
That's the thing. And actually, that's something that we're seeing all around the nation. So people just assume that my district was conservative, but they weren't voting Republican because they're conservative. They're voting Republican because they wanted change. They're sick of this machine that's been controlling our politics, this handful of wealthy elites that bundle money. You just go to these certain gatekeepers, and you don't ask for the maximum donation, $2,000 in Hawaii. You ask for $50,000, and they'll go ask all their friends to bundle for you. And then once you're in, you're beholden to them. So, I was also up against a corporate Democrat that race, and I'll spend 10 to 1 by him. So it was. I think that's what we're seeing across the nation, is that people don't really look at politics as left and right. A vast majority of folks can't even place. Only 17% of folks in a recent study could place the terms liberal with Democrat and conservative with Republican. The other 80 somewhat percent of people just don't even see the world that way. It's just, are you with us? Or are you with the elites? That's just the real view. So if we really want to win back, like the Trump voters in the middle of America, they're looking for change. They are struggling. So when like Hillary gets on stage and says America's already great, they feel ignored. So we gotta say, I see you struggling. Hey, I'm struggling too. I come from the working class, and here's something that you can believe in, like Medicare for all, free tuition free college. I mean, tuition free public college. Stop sending your kids to war for no reason. Invest in here instead. Like these are things that people will agree on, whether Republican or Democrat. We just gotta make sure that we run on those things and actually talk to those people. Like Hillary Clinton didn't even go to Wisconsin. She didn't even campaign there, but like we definitely could have won if we just brought that message. And that's what I did my first race, and that's what I'll always do.
Did you end up voting for Hillary then? Just kind of like as default?
No, I did. Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
I
um,
wrote in Bernie because I was like, fuck that bitch. I don't care.
no,
I was like,
I fall
I
in love
just
in the
couldn't.
primary, fall in line. Like you kind of, I just Trump is like represents all the evil, all the like the
Yeah.
dark side of America. All in one person. So I just, yeah, we got
A
to take
lot
him
of
down.
people did, and I don't blame them at all. It was like such a rock and hard place thing. It was like, if you don't do this, you get that, even though you don't want this. Tough
Hmm.
shit. So yeah, that was definitely a free education, so to speak. Um, so you talk a lot on your platform about Medicare for all and things like
Hmm.
that. There's a comment that says it. Where is she? I think her name is Erin. Yes, Erin Fernandez. She says, "Thank you for our single payer bill out here in Hawaii." So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in Hawaii, it was like 2004. The legislature passed a Hawaii Health Authority, which was tasked to figure out how to move towards universal health care. And right when we were about to pass it, like the study was going and everything was about to happen, um, we passed the Affordable Care Act. And Hawaii had the strongest healthcare law in the nation. We passed in the 70s, prepaid healthcare. 20, if you're working 20 hours, you need to be covered by your employer. But so we had like only a 2% underemployed rate. We're really high. And ACA actually made things worse for us here
Wow.
in Hawaii, a lot worse, actually. And like all the things that was so great about our system are getting thrown apart. So then I did a bill that was it's just a study to see like if a single payer or Medicare for all sort of system would work for Hawaii, kind of like California, and the insurance lobby here in Hawaii just shut it down right away. So it didn't really get the light of day. I thought if I went with a study and didn't just do like a program, it could have more of a chance. But they're a really, really strong lobby here, and they're a nonprofit. HMSA is a nonprofit, but it's a nonprofit where their CEO gets paid 40 times more than the average employee. So it's a real battle, but it should happen federally, really, with a Medicare for All Act. It was more of a push to get more people talking about it than anything else.
Absolutely. I've worked in healthcare for almost a decade, so I see the need for sure. Um, Somebody else had a comment there from your area as well. Um, Ryan Bell, he said that you are his representative. So it looks like you have some supporters, which is good because when people are in office and they've run again, even if it's another position, if they don't have support, I think that's kind of indicative of they didn't accomplish much, essentially, or they weren't sincere, or what have you. Something I touched on our first attempt was you had a rough life growing up, and I think that's why people can identify with you because you haven't always grown up like rich and everything. Like you had assistant school lunches and things like that, so you understand what it's like to struggle, even if it's only minute compared to other people. So, do you think that people, voters, find that more genuine? That that's what attracts them to you?
Um, I think people understand that Congress has enough millionaires and billionaires in it. They don't represent like the actual demographics of America. It's cool, I guess, to have a small business owner or a business owner talking about minimum wage and how it affects businesses. It's better to have somebody who just worked a minimum wage job less than 10 years ago. Like, that's the perspective you need, and that's the perspective that's missing. 31% of people in Hawaii aren't making enough in their salaries to cover their basic needs now. Our middle class is evaporating. 70% of us are paycheck to paycheck, which means, one car crash or hospital emergency and you're done. Like you could be on the streets. So everyone's struggling. It's not like, the like business class versus like the middle class. It's the rich, the poor, the working class, the middle class versus the ultra tippy top 0.1% now, ultra rich. Like that's what's going on in our society. And I think there's a study, 82% of the wealth created last year went to the 1%. So the economy's getting better, but everyone's still struggling. We're getting ripped
Right.
off. We're not getting paid what we're producing. Workers are producing more and more money, but we're getting less of it. It's just getting ripped off. Look at your cable bill. Look at your phone bill. Like it's crazy now. Everything's controlled by these monopolies. Like the pro business agenda doesn't even. It's not even about an open market. It's about protecting this cartel that gives it campaigns and let them charge as much as they want to customers. So like we're at the point where like the progressive agenda is more pro business than the conservative agenda, um, and pro labor and pro human and pro environment. It's just I can't understand at this point how um, deluded you can be um, to think that austerity still works.
Absolutely. Aaron Fernandez said that you were the real deal. You were just endorsed by the local Our Revolution. So she said, if you're a burner, help him win. We love people endorsed by Bernie and Our Revolution or any of those things. I saw you were also endorsed by the people of Bernie Sanders. I forget which one it was.
Oh, the
Um,
people for Bernie Sanders, it's like Winnie Wong and those folks. Um,
right.
Incredible following they built, and they're really strong. They're like real strong on the progressive left, so I really respect the place that they're coming from. Like they've been really sharing a lot of the DSA material, and they're pretty unapologetic about it.
Good. That's how we all need to be for sure. Something I found out through my research, which really shocked me because somehow I never even heard of this, was that you actually took on Mark Zuckerberg, which is just so like kind of fascinating. But what was I know it was about land, but can you kind of expand more on how that went down?
Yeah, so in Hawaii, our land was owned by the kingdom and the people. There was no like private ownership of land before like 200 years ago or 300 years ago, and it was called the Mahele. So they divided it between like the people, the kings, and private ownership, and the missionaries like controlled a lot of it, right? These like missionary families that colonized Hawaii. They took our government, they took control of our economy, and they divided this land. So a good portion of it, a small portion of it, was called kuleana lands. They got passed on from Hawaiian families generation to generation, but there's no deeds or title. So Hawaiians have access to this land, but it's so watered down where you can't really figure out where it is. You just know you have it. Um, I mean, you can't really walk through it. It's just these small plots. So Zuckerberg comes into Kauai. He buys 700 acres on like this island that Jurassic Park was filmed on. Avatar, beautiful, beautiful oceanfront. Um, and he like builds this. This is the guy, who, by the way, who says like build bridges, not walls. And he builds this like 6 foot wall across his entire property, blocking people from fishing or hunting, just like the Hawaiian people. And it turns out that 17 acres of that land belonged to was Kuleana lands. So instead of like entering mediation to try to figure out how to figure this out, he goes and sues all these native Hawaiian impoverished families to take their land. And I got in the media. I called them a modern day colonizer. For I called them like a sugar baron, basically. And it really picked up. Like it went international. And after like 2 weeks of bad headlines, he dropped the lawsuits. And so we won that battle in a way, but still the fence is still up there. And it's not like these people actually want to live on that land because it's ill defined. They just want the ability to walk through so they can hunt or fish or whatever. But, even though Zuckerberg is way on the other side in like his house and it's 700 acres, he just doesn't want brown people walking through it in the end. That's really what it's about. So
Absolutely.
I mean, why else? So, because he could still just say like portion off 17 acres and push it aside, but he won't do that. Uh, and it was really disingenuous. Like he had all these holding companies that he tried to sue from. We had a really good local reporter that found out it was him. And he was calling it like, you know, um, North Shore Tarot and just like just his bogus like holding companies. So I don't know. I don't usually pick fights with billionaires, but when I do, I guess it's the guy who owns my Instagram. Kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, yeah, because they haven't exactly been very excited about free speech as of late, and everything we're posting.
Yeah,
That's
alternative and independent media, they've been really cracking down in the name of fake news. But um, you know, it's the way they're going about it. If the only news that's accepted is controlled by corporations, uh, I don't know. It's going down a really scary path.
absolutely, yeah. We learned in 2016 we are the media, so if we don't have this, like,
Right.
we're screwed. We need to use this, no doubt. Something that really, I don't, it kind of blew me away. The guy you're running against, it looks like he's the current lieutenant governor.
Hmm.
Um, his name is Doug Chin.
Hmm.
Uh, he supported gay conversion therapy. And he is definitely not a fan, apparently, of separation of church and state,
Well, not
by
anymore.
the things he
He's
says.
evolved.
Oh, he's evolved.
Mm.
Well, I saw the clip from 2 years ago, so I'm not sure how evolved he is.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been tough because I gotta he's come out strong against for the ban now of conversion therapy. So it's hard. It's very hard to let this come out, but so people know because our records matter. But I don't want to be negative too. I don't believe in negative campaigning. So it's a really hard thing to balance. But I also think if you want to have integrity in a campaign, you should say it yourself. You shouldn't get like liaisons to come out and you know out some dirt on your opponent. You should be able to just be like, I think this person should be held accountable, and I expect them to do the same for me. But the big concern I have with my opponent, more than anything, um, I mean, yeah, the gay rights thing is bad, and I I'm glad he evolved, and I expect him to vote well. But the biggest concern is the fact that right before he was Attorney General, he was the chief lobbyist in Hawaii in 2015 for the Correction Corporation of America, the for-profit prison company, the biggest one that like detains immigrants against the due process. And we ship 1,700 of our prisoners to a private prison in Arizona, in Hawaii, because there's not enough space here. We're using our jails as prisons. Everything's overcrowded. It's really inhumane. So we like outsource, break them apart from their families. It makes it worse. They don't get rehabilitated. They actually like get influenced by gangs and stuff on the mainland that we don't have here. It's just horrible. And he was their chief lobbyist. He was paid six figures, and he was a Republican then. He became a Democrat in 2016. So I think this is something that we're seeing across the nation, not just in my race. Is this hashtag resistance movement full of centrists who claim to be progressive because you're poking Trump in the eye. So my opponent, he as AG, he sued Trump on the travel ban, which was great. But he did that, under the governors. He was appointed AG, and I really appreciated that actually. But just because he took that action, all of a sudden he's like a progressive hero. But he's not campaigning on Medicare for all. He's not campaigning on tuition free college or any of the things that we care about. So I understand the necessity of having like an all hands on deck approach to take on Trump, but we cannot let like these opportunists lead our party. Especially now in safe Democratic seats, we got to make sure we have strong progressives who are going to lead us because Donald Trump will come and go. We'll be back in power, and it's like what kind of Democrats do you want that to be? That's the big question. And I remember it was like 2010 or so when Ted Cruz first got in. Everyone was like, "Man, this guy's a kook." You have this Gang of Eight happening with immigration. Ted Cruz is over here talking about building a wall and like banning certain groups of people, and people thought he was crazy because he wasn't incrementalist. But as soon as Republicans got back in power, they adopted the whole Ted Cruz agenda. So why aren't we holding that line? Like this is what we believe in. Here are some bold policies. When they say defund Planned Parenthood and ruin families' lives, we say defund ICE and reuniting families. When they come after like immigrants, we go after the guns. Like I'm tired of saying like nobody wants to take their guns. Like, yeah, I want to take your guns. I want to take your AR-15s. I want to melt them. Like we need to come really strong. Like job guarantee, universal basic income. Oh, we don't want to give handouts. Yes, we want to give handouts. You're automating our jobs. We want to tax your robots and we want to give it to the workers instead. Um, and I think if we lead with that, then even if even if we get watered down, at least we're coming from a really strong place of bargaining. And that's what they did. Otherwise, they keep moving to the right. We keep meeting them in the middle. And they move more to the right, and there's a new middle. And then the whole country gets shifted that way. So it's really time that we stand strong in what we believe in. If it's a tug of war, we need somebody like with the rope tied around his waist.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you support a federal job guarantee?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny thing is, I was the very early on, like over a year ago, I met with the DSA folks in Hawaii, and I was like, "Hey, what's like a great idea that's cutting edge that we can campaign on the left?" And they're like, "Oh, a federal job guarantee." I was like, "Yeah, that's a good one." So we did it. I had a friend of mine from Blue America, Howie Klein. I was like, "Hey, I'd like to campaign on this, and I'd like to get more candidates campaigning on this." So he got all his endorsed candidates to talk to Stephanie Kelton, the head of um, the Art Sanders Institute uh, board, I believe, or
Yeah,
one of the
she
chief
comes on
economists.
here.
Yeah, one of the chief economists. And so she talked to all the candidates, and then now we're all campaigning on it. It's crazy. So there's like a
That's
bunch of
amazing.
candidates that's running on a federal job guarantee, and it's just a great proposal because it's about more than just employment. It's like empowering workers. I think Stephanie probably talked about it, but uh, I don't know. I just think it's the kind of thing we should be leading on.
Absolutely. Did you ever talk to Stephanie about what MMT? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's the idea that um, money, our economy
Modern
is
monetary theater
our
theory? Yeah.
yeah our economy is functioning best when the money is actually circulating in our economy, not just sitting in government coffers. And that's like, well, if you even believe in the concept of money, first of all, you got to understand what money is. Um, it's just like the value we put on it. Uh, so yeah, it's basically like, look, deficits are really a tool used by like the austerity people, the conservatives. They always talk about how are you going to pay for something. I don't even engage in that anymore. I used to say like, "Oh, we can cut this program. We'll pay for this. Cut the military by 1%, and we can pay for tuition-free college." I try not even to go there anymore because as soon as you do, you're activating this balanced budget frame that people like Paul Ryan use to justify draconian cuts to working families, and they're full of it because they just added another $1 trillion to the deficit to pay out their donors. So we got to make sure that Congress is going to do that. That money goes to actually stimulate the economy and to like the working class and middle class, because those are people that actually spend the money in the economy. Like they'll get haircuts, they'll buy groceries, they don't hide their paychecks on the Cayman Islands. So that's what modern money theory is about mostly. If you have a deficit in the government, you have a surplus in the economy, and vice versa. So deficits aren't necessarily a bad thing. You just got to make sure that it's going to the right place, because our economy is run on spending. So we just got to have money moving.
Right. We need money to spend
Yeah,
it.
that is,
um,
unless you want to shift completely away from capitalism, but that's another discussion.
that would be really interesting to see Hawaii or somewhere like that go fair trade in some areas. I think that would be pretty amazing. If anybody could start it, it would probably be someone on an island for sure. You could go rogue. Just go build your own little place and, F capitalism.
Yeah, but corporate donors. The thing about
Oh, yeah.
the thing about corporate donors in Hawaii is like the ones that would normally go Republican, they're forced to go Democrat because of our dominance, and then our party becomes reliant on their money. So then our whole party shifts their way. So like the Democratic Party here isn't the same as the Democratic Party elsewhere. It's a really big tent, and oftentimes we seem very lost. Like our death with dignity bill almost died last week. Um, my sanctuary state bill got like 20 no's out of 51, and I think there's only five Republicans now. So it's it's not exactly what you think. There's very few progressives.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, it looks like something else I found interesting. You stated, I believe it was your personal Facebook page, but you stated something about you're the only one in your race who actually has a platform on their page because the other ones are waiting until, the results come out about, the stocks and everything else before they actually decide what they're going to support.
Yeah. Well, two reasons. First, corporate donors. You kind of want to play both sides. You can raise money off both sides. Once you take a position on Medicare for all, you can't raise money from big pharma. You can't raise money from insurance companies. Once you take a position on foreign policy, you're not going to be able to raise as much money from Lockheed Martin and Boeing. Once you take a position on a carbon tax, a progressive position, you're not going to be able to raise money from big oil, from ExxonMobil, right? So these are the biggest donors. So what you see in congressional races is people don't post their issues on the website until the very end. Also, they want to make sure that they take the end of summer polls, so then their messaging is on point. But man, I talk to people. People are sick of being reduced to polls and data. They're just like, see me. I'm struggling. What about these issues that I talk? What about this issue that's keeping me up at night? Like, my daughter has a broken leg and I can't pay for it. Just like it's just basic stuff like that, and just got to get back to that humanity. I think that's why Democrats lost. Everything was so scripted. Oh, what song is Hillary Clinton going to walk out to? Oh, Katy Perry is blah blah polls. Like people are so tired of that. They just want people who are like humans, people who look like them, who dress like them, who talk like them. I mean, I don't know who else wears these kind of bright yellow shirts, but in my district, yeah, people do. And because otherwise, it's just like I don't know. Like people always blame people for not voting, but I think it's the fault of the politicians. It's the fault of the consultants. Like, why would I vote for someone who's wearing a monkey suit when I never owned a suit in my entire life? You know?
Absolutely. And something interesting also was Bernie would have been the first non millionaire elected president in
Is
decades.
that right?
Why? So nobody, like, can't we have someone represent us who, actually understands what it's like to be us?
I
It's
understand. That's like the Jesse Jackson speech. That like amazing speech. Yeah, I understand.
Something else you talk about on your platform is LGBTQ. I know we touched on that a little bit, but what is your passion with that? What do you hope to see change in Hawaii?
Uh, I mean, we're a solidly democratic state because of the labor movement. Our plantations were like our groups of races were split apart so they wouldn't communicate and organize. It didn't work. We figured out how to talk pidgin, borrow a little bit of language, different languages from Filipino, Japanese, Chinese, Hawaiian, and we formed our own language. We organized, we unionized, and we really people died in order to create the labor movement here in Hawaii. That's why we're so strong as Democratic Party. Socially, mm, like Hawaii was colonized by missionaries, right? So our Democratic Party comes from both of those roots. Um, so when we had a marriage equality hearing in 2013, over like 4,000, maybe 7,000 people were just like all week. It was a special session, all week, one bill. They're all in the rotunda, just like the most hateful signs, the most like had to have security out there at all times. It was just so painful to watch. And like I said, so many Democrats are voting against it. But uh, a lot of brave people from the LGBTQ community spoke up against all that hatred, and we won. And for me, it's like I grew up really conservative, so it wasn't until like I actually got to know people in high school where my views changed, and um, I don't know. I just think it's sort of common sense now for my generation, and it's frustrating to see my opponents because I'm the only person who stood up for marriage equality. There's four candidates in this race right now. They're all on the other side, as recent as 2013. Same goes for like reproductive freedom for women. Same goes for criminal justice reform. They're all on the wrong side, and now that they're running, they switch their views. So it's been a little frustrating for me to try to get that out and still have a positive campaign. But it's just I think we need people willing to stick out their necks before the issue is a popular one. Like that's what being progressive is all about. It's not just checking boxes. Are you pro life? Are you pro LGBT? Like that stuff, it matters and it's important. But you also need to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations about what the next set of boxes will be. And that's literally the definition of progressivism, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
Before it's polling well.
Yes. What if there's one thing you want our audience to take away from this, especially those in Hawaii, who can recommend you or vote for you or campaign for you? What's the one thing you really want to leave with them to encourage them to look into you more?
I don't know, just like we need people that are more real. I think if you look at most candidates, the reason why, like, I didn't really want to get involved originally in politics was because, like, I always feel like they're talking at me or they're treating me like an object. Like, I can just be manipulated, and if they press the right buttons in the right order, I'll fall in line. And me, probably you too, just being coming from like a little bit rebellious personality, I just resented that. Like, how dare you think you could just like move me around like pawns? So just people want to be seen as humans. Like that, you talked about my first race with Republicans. I just like you can knock on a door. Um, they can be watching Fox News, uh, have that American flag, like Confederate flag, even whatever. If you're just like, hey, I'm I understand that government feels like they don't care, and that's why I'm here personally to listen to you. Um, they're gonna vote for you because they can't say you're not listening, and they can't say that you don't work hard, and they can't say you don't care. So we gotta just get back to those basics, and you know that's just what I try to do. Because like these people, like if it wasn't for like really bold progressive leaders in the past, I'd be on the streets. Like these that's another thing that I really want to talk about that I'm not talking about enough is like this concept of unity. Um, it's like people think that unity is going to be found by like meeting in the middle, but that's not what history says. So like, what issues are we united over now between like progressives, corporate Democrats, Republicans? It's Medicare and Social Security. Here in Hawaii, Kaho'olawe, we have this island that was like bombed by the military for testing, and it was horrible. And so the Native Hawaiians got really angry, but the Native Hawaiians like actually paddled out to the island and sat on it and lived there in order to stop the bombing. And they're really, really unpopular at the time. They're considered radicals, right? But now everyone's like, oh, they were heroes, and like, oh, everyone loves Kaho'olawe. It's this beautiful story. The people who fought for Medicare and Social Security were radical as hell. So Martin Luther King had like a 18% approval rating. Like these were radicals, and we're progressive. We're on the left, and we're just like, I'm not taking no for an answer. And 50 years later, these are the only things we agree on across the spectrum. So like, if you want unity, be progressive, be bold, and don't back down.
Absolutely. You said the one thing on your page that I long for every candidate to say, and that was the word empathy. We don't have that enough. We don't have that's the number one thing. If you can't say, that I care even though it's not happening to me, you don't deserve a vote. I mean, it's that simple. So the fact that you said that, I think, says a lot. And there's definitely people in the comments who are feeling you for sure.
Oh, thank. I mean, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated by the fact that I have to tell my story because people are like, "Oh, why do you care? Why do you have such a strong stance about late-term abortion or parental um, control over or parental consent of emergency contraceptives and all this stuff?" I'm like I they assume it's like, "Oh, you must have had a friend who was pregnant when you're young." I'm like, why does it take that for like us to believe somebody's coming from a genuine place? Like, why can't we just be empathetic? Like, we just got to get back to those values of like, I mean, I understand the personal story and I tell mine as much as I can, but it's like, why do you actually have to have lived through it to be an authentic messenger? Like, that's how cynical we've become. And I don't know, just basic, because we also talk about like, what was it, equality, fairness, and tolerance, and these are real like abstract terms, but we got to get back to like what I teach my 2-year-old, like, up there. That's when he was a lot younger. But it's just like interdependence. Like, we all need each other and sharing. if Native Hawaiians, if you fish too much, if you give the rest to your neighbors, if just kind of common sense values, and just get back to those basics.
Right on. Do you want to give your Twitter, your Facebook, your website, all that
Yeah,
fun stuff?
yeah. We're up against a lot of money, corporate money. They're mobilized behind my opponents now. Um, we're in the running. I think we have the winning message. We just gotta get the resources to get it out. Over 2,000 donors have chipped in just a couple months. It's a record for this seat. We're second place out of 4 in fundraising, and I think we have a good shot of posting really big this quarter, which ends at March. So any help means a lot, especially because I know that my donors aren't like rich folks, you know. So like the $5, $10, I know it really means a lot to them. It could be, it's a big chunk for them. Like, I've been there, so just know that you know I have their back. I have your back, and um, it's not just about like seats here and there, or flipping the house or any of that. I mean, that's important, but it's also about building a movement. And um, elected officials are just like, we're just the last piece of the puzzle, but we can also be used as a way to um, build the movement back and forth between the people and us. So that's kind of the way I see my role, and we just support each other. Oh,
Absolutely.
KanielaIng.com, uh, at Kaniela Ing, Facebook slash Facebook.com/vote Kaniela. Um, I think that's it. Yeah. It's a
Okay.
weird name, right? It's Kaniela, and that's Native Hawaiian, and Ing is Chinese. So
That's why I was like, oh, I'm probably going to say this wrong
yeah,
because English
Ing's a lot
sounds
easier.
Chinese.
It's a suffix.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this talk. It was awesome. And thank you all so much for watching. I know you guys are used to my Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows, but tomorrow I actually scored an exclusive. So that'll be at 4:30 Eastern PM. And it's this guy running in Georgia. His name is Trent Nesmith. He is running as a candidate in Georgia, and his campaign manager, you may have heard about it on the news, it's kind of blowing up. His campaign manager received a bag of dicks from the Democratic Party. So basically, they're coming here to talk about the campaign and the wonderful message they received. So that will be I know, I can. That'll be at 4:30 tomorrow night. But thank you again so much for joining us, and best of luck on your campaign. Best of luck with everything and your beautiful family.
Thanks so much. Keep it up. It's really
Absolutely.
important you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye.